How's everybody doing tonight? Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Shout out to my man Chris Whitlock for joining us. Shout out to my man Jeffrey Johnson. I see a few people filing in. So I guess what prompted me to do this is a couple people inside study GRCs. Chris Discord was asking me some FedRamp questions. So it's been a minute since I've done a FedRamp video, so I thought I would just touch on that a little bit. Shout out to my man Ty for joining us. Two, I like that. 1, 2. Check, check. 1, 2. Check, check. So you know how we do it. If you got any cybersecurity questions, shout out to Regine, or tech questions, just hit me up. I've been in this game a few years, so I probably should be able to answer the questions. That reminds me, I need to reach back out to that guy in Discord. Let's see. We have sound over here, Angelique. Shout out to Regine giving me the one. I might need to pop over there. I don't know if Chris is super busy. Chris, if you got a minute, I don't know if you eating with the family. Can you check on my LinkedIn side for me? Not that you work for me. If not, it's cool. But if you can you ping over there and see what's going on my LinkedIn side, if you don't mind, or Regine or anybody else on LinkedIn? I guess I could go over there and peek out. But once again, you see it, FedRamp talking about the final. Oh, we're all good. We're good. Few decades, a few facts. Now, I appreciate she figured it out. So my LinkedIn is running. Yep, a few decades. PBO's getting up there. So once again, you know how we do it. I'm usually on Study GRC's Discord or channel, bothering those guys. So if you want to, definitely check out. I appreciate you, Chris. She figured out. I'm usually in Study GRC's Discord and on their YouTube channel, even though they're focusing more on Discord in the 2026s. So I'm usually over there bothering people. So, Chris, if you want to drop your channel, your Discord, you're more than welcome to do that. If not, that's cool too. So let's talk about FedRamp. I appreciate you, Kev Tech. Definitely one of the bigger YouTubers. Gave me a shout out, helped me grow. So I always appreciate Kev Tech. So if he always need me, he can ping me. So, but definitely check out Kev Tech, IT support, doing it big. He's the role model, trying to get my course done, which I've been working on forever. Shout out to Chris for helping me. I'm still not done. That's when I'm gonna try to wrap up 2025. Finally get my course out. So, shout out to Dr. Oja for giving the old people a little time, So. 2026, get my course done and get on my CISSP. Those are going to be my 2026 goals. 2026 is almost here. Let's get going. So, everybody know I'm a NIST 800-53 guy, which Chris put up here. If it ain't 53, it's not for me. FedRamp was really just NIST 800-53 in the cloud with the shared responsibility. Shout out to my man, Larry. Larry, I was going to ask you what was happening in the government. A friend of mine is a PMP, but what's your status over there, Larry? You don't have you don't have to answer. Are y'all hiring? I know the regime is kind of putting a little heat on you, Larry. You got any openings over there at the Fed? Any remote work y'all giving out over there, Larry? Like I said, a good friend of mine is looking for some PMP work. Shout out to GMR. Thanks for joining me. I might ping you offline, Larry. What's your PMO status over there looking like? Let's see. Let's get going. We're gonna hit on that FedRamp. People are always tired, man. So you see it. That's coming off their page, their FedRamp. Shout out to Larry. That's what they be doing. The PMO full office at the top of Office of Management and Budget, the GSA, FedRamp PMO. You see a joint authorization board, the JAB. Over there, the guidance and cross-agency coordination. My favorite is the FISMA standards, technical advisors, technical specification, and your certification. So FedRamp basically at a high level said, hey, we want to do work in the cloud. We don't want to have to people to do risk assessment every time they do the cloud. We're gonna FedRamp. We're gonna give it. My boss said this term. I hate it. It's an old term. Good housekeeping seal, meaning once you see that seal of FedRamp, you know it's good, right? So that's kind of what the government was doing, and I think me and Larry was talking about this about 5 years ago. There was a $9 billion came out for cloud work. So the big four that got it was AWS, Azure, Google. Shout out to Oracle. They've been making some noise. Oracle won that, and I'll probably bring it up on the screen. We'll look at it. That $9 billion bid. So everybody's getting their work. Shout out to my man. Came here to say hi real quick. I appreciate you, Kev Tech. Shout out to Big Kev Tech. Once again, put me on this platform. Help me grow a little bit. So I always shout out to Kev Tech. Go check him out doing that IT support work. Definitely creeping out on that cybersecurity world too. I'm always tired too. I need a live stream between the facts. Come and check me out, man. You know I do noon on Fridays, so I'm trying to do lunch alert on Fridays. So come and check me out. So let's get it rolling. Hiring freeze, furloughs, everything locked right now. I appreciate you, Larry. Like I said, I had one of my homies looking for some. I appreciate that. So the Treasury uses FedRamp. Do you think the president would hinder the funds that way? Yes, they already hindering funds. I think CISA, they put on their website that we kind of locked up till the funding gets coming. I think the administration cut, the CISA budget astronomically. So what FedRamp was used for, any big government agency that goes to the cloud, they usually want you to have the FedRamp designation. So Azure has certain centers of FedRamp. My favorite, AWS, they have some gov centers and some of their commercial centers are FedRamp. So they want you to have that FedRamp designation, meaning you're going to have your NIST 800-53 policies and procedures, configuration management plans, COOP, incident response. So that whole federal things, most of the big vendors are already doing, but certain data centers have that designation. And we'll probably bring those up at the end and look at a couple of those different data centers. Once again, I appreciate you, Larry, for giving that info out. Like I said, one of my good homies was laid off, so trying to help them out. Everybody knows this is the top 20 families in this 800-53. That's why I love it. We do big families and big things. So those are it. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out what FedRamp will probably go under. System service and acquisition, because we're acquiring a service of the cloud. So it probably would be in there. Of course, risk assessments. Even though it's FedRamp, it's a shared responsibility. So I believe those data centers will fall under those two security families. FedRamp is a package of comprehensive set of documents, artifacts that demonstrates a CSP, that's cloud service provider, complies with FedRamp requirements. This package is submitted for final steps in authorization process, either to the JAB or an agency path. Below is an overview of the key components, purposes, and significance of the FedRamp final package. I got you. Shout out to my buddy. We try. So the JAB basically is a board that all the federal agency used to say this is the service. So Splunk went through the JAB. The JAB says any service can use Splunk. A lot of smaller vendors, your product is being used for a specific service or agency. You see it right there, agency authorization path. So when I was working at the state doing IRS work, there was some vendors we like. So what we do is we would say, okay, we like this vendor. So us as a government agency could say, we want this vendor to go through FedRamp. So if they prick that vendor, the agency path would, once they went through that particular path, then they could get on the FedRamp, and we look at that list to say this service is approved to do this type of work, right? It could be high, medium, low, public trust, right? It's just not one FedRamp certifications. It's different levels depending on the classification of your data. So let's keep rolling. The purpose of the final package, like FedRamp is, and we'll see the path of it. FedRamp is, they have the initial, you continuing at the final. Once you get everything done, you got this big package, and you have to submit it in to get your ATO. Shout out to Jason, appreciate you. Good to see you with the ladder climbers doing previous. Oh yeah, I try to peek in there sometime. Shout out to my man Wade. I need to get in there a little more. So I usually be up there trying to work. PBO got to lose some weight in 2026, but he said that in 2025. Now shout out to Wade. Once again, he interviewed me, one of the bigger YouTubers. I need to tell him to interview me again. I need more users, but nah, shout out to Wade. Shout out to Black Heights doing big things. Once again, the final package, validation of compliance, demonstrates the CSP is fully implemented and tested out required security controls. Decision support provides an authorizing agency or job with the necessary information to approve or deny authorization to operate. So once you get a system, no, I wouldn't consider Dynatrace a SIM. So I use Dynatrace to look through my web applications, and it talks about how many files are open, what's your memory. For me, it's more of a performance check for certain applications. That's what I used it for. Now, I need to double check. People buy other things and use other things, but I wouldn't put Dynatrace in there. But once again, I probably needed to do a little research because people be buying each other. Remember, we talked there was two ways, right? The job or the agency authorization. Then at the end, you submit your package, and it's going to probably be 2,000 pages. We're going to have 20 policies and procedures. You're going to have your plans. You're going to have your COOP. Shout out to Larry. We was talking about the COOP, the DR, the incident response. So I think you got 5 big plans. So those plans alone are probably going to at least be 20 to 30 pages. You know, shout out to Larry. We know we like that government paperwork. So your policies and procedures, usually we have 20 separate policies. You got to do roles, responsibilities, what executive order fits those. So each one of those policies can be anywhere from 12 to 25 pages. We like that stuff, right? So all that paperwork, and I guess that's one of the good and bad things about the government. So once you get all your paperwork, you submit it, then they're outside auditors, aka 3 PAOs, will review your paperwork to see if you qualify for that system, right? Encryption, we know we're gonna need MFA, FIPS 143 encryption. We know hardening. Windows 2022's got about 275 hardening checks to put on a Windows server, right? So all that paperwork's go in is going to get turned in. Standardized assessment, ensure all assessments and documentation meets FedRamp rigorous standards. So I've worked on the paperwork. I've reviewed FedRamp vendors. I've never turned in the final package. I usually work for VP of compliance or something that handles the final paperwork. My job is to give them all the pieces to put in the final document. A lot of times, y'all know I work with the development team, the infrastructure team, talk about the checks and mitigating controls and that. But we're going to get to that. Once again, throw any questions in the chat. Key components of the final package. SSP is the big one. Detailed document outlining system architecture, boundaries. That alone is going to be about 800 pages, depending on how big your system is and how many your architecture and your boundaries. once again, since it's in the cloud, it's FedRamp. You're gonna have AWS, but remember it's shared responsibility. So they're gonna do your data center, webcam, um, destruction of servers and stuff. They're gonna handle all that, right? But it's shared responsibility. So you're gonna have code and vendors, servers, Lambda, databases, right? So that'll be your responsibility. How you configure that up to be working for your particular agency. Let me know if you have any questions. PBO ramming a little bit. So, key components of the final page: the SAR, Security Assessment Report, created by accredited third-party assessment organization. And we'll go out there and probably look at the FedRamp page. There's probably 30 3PLs you can use, which are outside organizations. When you believe you're ready, they'll come in. What I usually do and how I make my money is, I do an internal audit, work with the client, work with the agencies, because if you get a 3PL, they're about $300 an hour. PBO is a lot cheaper than that. So a lot of times people hire me to come on and work with their staff and, get ready. So going through that particular process will be easier. PBO job is to review your paperwork, review your policies and procedure, review your, once again, your plans, review your findings when we scan using Qualsys, Nexus, Lexus. What's the last one? So there's 3 or 4. Rapid7, right? Because they're going to come and scan out your hardware and figure out what your findings and what we don't have set appropriately. Provide detailed findings. That's what we were talking about right there from the security assessment, including test results for each security control, identify vulnerabilities, and recommend it for remediation. So when you do this, people think you're going to have no findings. That is incorrect. You're going to have a bunch of findings, but you should have compensating controls and mitigating controls. So why would you have findings? A lot of times application sits on Windows or Linux, and there's certain things that are high level, super secure. When you cut them on, they break your app. So we're like, okay, we couldn't cut on this particular control, aka they wanted encryption. We could do the encryption on the network, but we could do it inside the database, right? So we couldn't do it on the Cisco because it was breaking stuff. We couldn't get the right ciphers, but inside Oracle, they had FIPS 140-2 encryption. So we did it on a table space and not on a network, right? So even though we didn't do it on the network, when we go get those blocks, you couldn't read them right because it's encrypted and the key is saved on Oracle, right? So that's control we couldn't set, but we set it another way, right? And that's why they say identify vulnerabilities and recommendation for remediation, right? So remediation, I always joke and say that's where I make my money. If we can't do this, what can we do to I wouldn't say pacify, that's the wrong term, but to get through the audit, right? And there's gonna probably be 20 or 30 of those when you're working on a big system. And part of the things, if we get a finding or we could put a certain control on, we have a plan of action and milestone. Basically, it's a schedule. That's what we need our PMs in the house. Shout out to Larry. Shout out to Angelique. So they keep the schedule, meaning it was a cat 1. This is the findings. We got 30 days to fix it, right? Or this was a cat 2. We got 60 days to fix it, right? I agree with that. I agree with that security expert. Most five by nation using this 800. Yeah. No, I agree with that. There's definitely some overlap on there. Like I said, Canada, I thought used Pippa. Did he say Canada? Where did I get Canada? Oh, yeah. So I've done a little Canada, Pippa, one is one of those. And shout out to my man, Man. I think he's in Australia. And there's a lot of overlap with the ISO too. So no, shout out to that. I appreciate you, security expert, for joining me. That's the cool thing. Yep, PIPA for privacy. You're right. I did code bingo that. You're correct for the privacy piece. I need to stay in my lane. But one thing I do like about NIST is um, if you could do NIST, right, it's so broad. There's a lot more checks. Shout out to Chris. He did the app that showed the different controls and the number of them. So I always say if you can do NIST, then you can do 171, which is CMMC. I always say if I do NIST, that's going to cover my CIS hardening, my STIG hardening, and my schism hardening. So I kind of try to go big or go home. But once again, on the big projects, they handle. No, you are correct. You are correct. I was working for a big Fortune 500 company. They were doing business in Canada, so that's kind of I always remember that. Key components. The big one is I work for a smaller consulting company. They were big on the con mine, so they had a federal customer. So as they were helping them with their hardening, helping them with their technology, they would have findings, and so you would have to continuously monitor them. So I use an AWS. You can use AWS config, and it'll go through and give a score if it's NIST 800-53, if it's FedRamp, if it's CMMC. So that was kind of their con mine particular audit. So that's kind of what I would use when I go on site. Details also as CSP, how are you maintaining your vulnerability scan, incident response, and report changes and updates. So part of the compliance, I always do compliance is what's your score, but part of that is your vulnerability scan, especially now that you got Patch Tuesday. It's always gonna work. Let's see what my man Ty said. The poem a lot of times is when you do your vulnerability scan and your compliance scan, it gives you vulnerability. So the poem is just a schedule of these are the things we need to fix. Right? When I worked on a big project, we had 10,000 findings when I was at DOT. Right? They were commingled because a lot of those were programming mistakes that testing found. But from DOD, those are findings that need to be fixed before you put in your final package. So we had compliance findings, we had error findings, and we had operational findings. So with those type of once again schedules, back then though, that's why you have a PMO office. We had testing for the developers, we had compliance scans, we had privacy scans. So all of those need to go on the schedule. Then what happens is when you work on agencies, y'all work together. So PMO can say, okay, PBO's team is dependent on another team. So if they don't get their findings fixed, their data won't flow to us. So right, so dependencies of them getting their stuff fixed, so it flows to us. So once again, all that has to work to get our ATO package done. Facts. And like Angelique said, and those particular findings too, once again, dependencies. So if they don't get their stuff fixed, it could flow down and everybody's schedule needs to move right, which is not good, right? You need to move left. And two is like she said, what's the risk of that? Some of those findings will be a cat 3. It's like we could probably get in production and fix it later, right? So even though it's a finding, something needs to be fixed, and what's the risk of that? Then everybody know I do STIG, so each finding has a cat 1, 2, or 3. 1 is super risky; it's been attacked in the wild, right? So, like she said, you got to have. The 2 part of that is it going to cost us a lot of money? Like I had a finding on a Cisco router where NIST wanted you to have failover to another physical hardware. My boss was like, "Dude, that's $250,000. That's not gonna happen. We're gonna do 2 virtuals in there, but if the hardware go down there, we toast. That's the risk we're gonna take, right?" So the PM will say, okay, this is it. We're going to put it in next year's budget because it's $250,000, right? Now, shout out to Chris. He's correct. Poem task 6, 837. And we talked about that, the different risk management frameworks. I just never usually go high. So I usually handle my poems inside of this 800-53. Right. But he is correct though, because once again, that's risk to the whole project. I usually just handle risk at the agency level or the client level. Right. So I usually don't handle the big boy risk, right? Because I always feel like at the 800 level with 1100 checks, I got enough to eat at that level. So I usually don't roll up to the 837, 34, 39. I believe those are the numbers. Correct me if I'm wrong. We always talk about that. I never really do the RMF at that level. Once again, we have so many findings, and like Angelique said, that's going to tell me the risk at the agency level. I don't care about the agency risk or the nation's risk. I got enough risk in my level, so I always handle it at that level. But Chris is 100% right. We always talk about that. I very rarely see it done from a corporate level. IT usually just so siloed and have so much risk at their level. Usually when I've been in risk meetings, those are usually more financial risk and not IT risk. We always talk about that. You are correct, though. I just tell you what I see in the real world, man. All right, man, doctor. No, they are. They are. I just, like I said, at that level, I just don't use them. Like I said, I cheat. I just take them and strip them down and do it once again more at the IT level and not at the corporate level. Components of a final package authorization letter. If pursuing an agency authorization path, the package includes a letter from the agency indicating their intent to grant an ATO. Once again, so at the state level, we like a vendor. We will reach out to the IRS is the federal agency, right? Even though I work at the state, we report to the feds. The feds have to give the agency level, right? So usually we say IRS, this is what we want to do. The IRS will reach out to FedRamp and they would give us a letter if we were trying to get a certain product or service. Other supporting documents, we talked about these policies and procedure. Probably the two big plans, a configuration management plan, incident response. And COOP used to be it, but now everybody can work from home in emergency. But those are the plans. I think there's 5 big plans. And I think me and Larry was talking about that. Actually, it's way more than that. Because when you talk about contingency, you talk about tornado drills, fire. So all those plans, and usually you don't use those unless you're working for a large state agency or large federal. But in this, if you work for a large company, a lot of that falls under chief security information officer, right? You have fire drills, tornadoes, cybersecurity attack, all of that's incidents that can affect your data and how people operate, right? So part of that, right, the CI triangle is confidentiality, integrity, and the one I always forget about is availability, right? So a tornado tearing all your system up will affect your availability. That's why you need a DR plan, disaster recovery. Right? Results from penetration tests and vulnerability scans. Shout out to my man Todd. That's kind of his area. But DOD, they want you to have every 3 years. They usually want us to have an outside vendor come in and do a professional vulnerability and penetration test. Right? Usually we do them in house. PBO done them a little bit, but he's not very good at it. Right? There's a lot of open source products. Like you said, usually we have some vendors. We have IBM or something. They have those tools built in. But like I said, it's not a professional, test. So those are some of the additional. Any additional documentation requested by FedRamp or authorizing bodies. A lot of times, depending on your outside auditors, sometimes they ask for different things. Sometimes they're specialized in certain services and documentation they want. So a lot of times what I do is I'm internal. I'll reach out to the external vendor and be like, what do you need from a readiness check so we know we're ready to your vendors? So they usually show what they're really looking for from a readiness check, right? So people don't like to guess. So I'll be like, here's our standard. This is what I got from your readiness check. Are we missing anything, or can you send me your readiness checklist so I can get started, right? To make sure the client or the agency's ready to go. Submission and review. Initial submission. The CSP submits the final package to either the FedRamp PMO or the JAB or the authorizing agency. 9 times out of 10, we're doing that once again, the agency. Because a lot of times, if the JAB's already done it, most big software, they already have that out there. So once again, usually we're working with a particular agency. Shout out to them putting that $9 billion bid. So any federal agency could say, we want to use Azure, we want to use AWS, we want to do Google, or we want to do Oracle. This is the services we want to put in your cloud. And sometimes they have custom developers working for the agency, and they want to do their own particular software and get it approved to do work, right? Even if you have custom software and you want it on a FedRAMP package, your custom software has to go through the process, right? Because anything in the cloud, they want to make sure it's secure and gets reviewed by a third-party company to make sure, once again, those security vulnerabilities, it's done well, it's done by standards that they want, and a lot of times they want you to use certain services that's approved to do that work. Now, that's true. I always have to know the impact of risk. Now, that's true, especially from a GRC perspective in IT, government's risk of compliance. That risk is what you should be conveying to your C-suite, right? Part of it's risk not getting done, or risk if we can't do something, or a budget risk. We're going to need more, more money because they want a duplicate Cisco router for $250,000. That is a negatory. That is incorrect, right? So submission and review again. JAB reviews the package with input for FedRAMP and technical representatives. The agency reviews package to ensure compliance with FedRAMP and their specific requirements, right? So the agency, once again, being Navy, DOD, make sure it's CMC compliant if you DOD. IRS is schism hardening. So each federal agency has their specific requirements, right? FedRAMP says the data center is good and this is good, but then each federal agency, like HIPAA and Health and Hospital have HIPAA and HITRUST. They have their specific agency requirements. So you as me in that area needs to understand what CMC is different. Shout out security expert. He was talking about the ICG, NIST 800-53, once again, CMMC, NIST 171, HIPAA HITRUST. Shout out there. We were doing the TSACs, which is the vehicle European standards they want because cars are getting hacked. So each one of those particular compliance agencies have their specific security requirements. So you being a SMEs, you need to kind of understand the details of a couple of those so you can once again drill down into the specifics of those particular compliances. The approval feedback. If the package is complete and compliant, the authorizing body grants an ATO. ATO, remember, is the authority to operate, meaning your system met all the requirements. You have all the documentation. You have all your plans and things in the features you need to fix. They didn't think any of those were a high risk or high security, and they were submitted. If the deficiencies are identified, the CSP, cloud service provider, must address them and resubmit. Right? So, which 9 times out of 10, they're going to come up with some stuff, right? A lot of auditors want to show that they're auditing. So for me, it's not a big deal, right? So if they come up with a few things, 4 or 5, now if they come up with 100 things, right, that's a different ball game. But a lot of times out of 10, they come up with 10 things, especially if they're all medium. You can knock those out, put those in poems, put those in the budget for next year. And 9 times out of 10, you can get your ATO. Significance of the final package. Authorization outcome. The approval of the final package leads to an issuance of an ATO or provisional ATO. Marketplace listing. Once authorized, the CSP is listed. We're going to go out there and look at the FedRamp marketplace, signaling compliance to other federal agencies. Signaling means they can use your software and really start paying you money. Foundation of continuous monitoring. The package forms the baseline for ongoing security assessment and common activities. A lot of times, Rapid7, Nexus, QualSys is some of the most popular continuous monitoring system. Inside AWS, they have AWS config. I did a couple videos on that. It'll give you a score. Once again, if you're FedRamp, CMC, High Trust, NIST 800-53, they have a lot of built-in scanners that can help you score what you need and fix what you need. And two, you like those too a lot of times because if developers are fixing stuff and your cloud engineers, they could cut stuff off and not tell you, then you'll be out of compliance, right? So you want to have some continuous monitoring. Say, hey, in that last release, somebody took some encryption out. That's a Cat 1. We need to get that back on ASAP, right? So we will work with our project managers in the house. We get that, put that on the link. The John Hightower is going to snitch on everybody. PBO going to run up the chain. This is Cat 1. If we're going to risk our ATO, we could be shut down. So project management need to get on. So shout out to that. So let's see what my man. Shout out to my man NC Workers. Definitely one of the day ones. Chris was booing me on the poem and on the risk management. Let's see. Assuming it's easier if you're already running low baseline for 53 or something, 53 already to go to FedRamp. No, that is true. If you're already on 53, if you're low, no, like yeah, no, that's 100%. A lot of times, hopefully, you're going to be at a maturity level, at a certain maturity level before you try to do government work. Even though I see 3 dudes in a garage try to do some DoD work, so. But 9 times out of 10, your company's already at a certain level. You got a certain level of policies and procedures. You got a certain level of plans. You got a certain level of hardening, right? So our goal is to get you to the next level, right? So you can get your ATO. Because that's a heavy lift, and that usually is going to cost some money. So if you're not at that level, a lot of times you're not going to try to do FedRamp or NIST 800. That's a big boy lift. Oh, it's all good. I appreciate you definitely voting. Now, shout out to my. No, you all good. You all good. Got to get our PMO in there. We were talking about it in another show, and Larry was like, "Oh no, we're even." I'm like, "No, that's incorrect." When I'm at the Fed, the PMO tells you what they want done. The PMO usually have the agency requirements. Part of that be securities. Part of that would be we want to be FedRamp certified or CMM certified. So a lot of times, PMO carries those requirements at a high level, right? Because they put your Gantt charts together. Then part of PBO's job is we trying to become provisional AT on these systems, right? So they have dependencies from other agencies. The PBO is going to do the provisional for the particular agency I'm working for, right? That'll be DOD. Once again, I worked at DFAS, which is DOD Finance Center, and we were doing general ledger systems. So, but that's 20 years ago. Now you would just buy general ledgers. But back then, we were creating our own, right? So if we got files from other systems, we had to roll them up. We had to get our ATO and our FISMA certification. So that was interesting. Once again, we had 10,000 errors. We were trying to do a system one time, and I was flabbergasted. I've just never seen that many errors. So we're going to have the big boss that was running that project. He's a good friend of mine. So he said I could interview him. So we're going to talk about those old things because his job was to make sure we got our ATO, make sure we got our provisional. Back then, though, DOD had their own data centers, but we had third-party assessors that would come out, right? So I was usually handle the web team and the app team, findings, paperwork, and policies and procedures. Then one of my other big bosses, she's worked for a big company. She left DOD as a project manager and became the CIO for my large state agencies. And I asked her, I was a little perplexed. I was like, "You're a project manager, but the Department of Revenue for Indiana had, I want to say, 900 people." She's like, "DOD, we had 400 programmers I had to handle." I was like, "Yeah, I didn't think about that, big boss." All right. So she was handling more at the DOD agency than she for a project than she was when she was working for Department of Revenue for the state of Indiana. So shout out to the PMs. You become CIO one day if your project's big enough. But once again, DOD, we probably had 500 people, 600 people. We had, I want to say 400 programmers in 5 states. Then we had an integrated test team in 4 states. It was crazy. But no, once again, PMO gives you that background so you can do bigger things. So shout out to Larry and shout out to Angelique doing big things. That's always been kind of on my list to maybe transition to project management for security. I just don't like hurting cats some days. So it is all good. But this is the kind of the flow from your SAP and your SAR developed by the 3PAO, third-party assessors. So we're going to do the kickoff meeting. You see their partnership established. Authorization planning, your SSP development. Agency review, your SAP development. Your SAR and your POEM development. We talked about those. And your continuous monitoring at the bottom. And as you go through your process, your common authorization, full security assessment, your SAR debrief, agency ATO. That's kind of what you're going to go through. Me as an internal auditors are the things I handle to make sure we're ready to go through this particular kind of audit. Now, facts. I like yeah, a lot of times, I'm at a certain age where I don't argue with people. I'm like, PMO, I can't get my stuff from the cloud engineers. So they won't give me a scan or they won't fix it on time. So I just run it up the chain. I let PMO handle that. I'm like, I ain't arguing with y'all. I'm too old. Yeah, I'm an interviewer. It kind of surprised me when I first thought, I'm like, wow, she invited me to come work for her at the state of Indiana. We worked together at DOD, and I handle a lot of special projects. And she was comfortable when she was coming through the state. They were struggling, so she wanted to do this is STIGs for the state, and she wanted to kind of bring that DOD security to a state agency. So it was cool. It was a heavy lift. We kind of got it. Then my ex-boss came in that kind of really helped me. I was kind of moving it, but I couldn't turn a battleship. He came in and turned a battleship, and we just got through rolling. So, but yeah, if your project's big enough, I just never really thought about it like that until she got it. Because realistically, I mean, because she didn't have a budget. She handled the budget for the whole agency. So she saw the numbers, the cleans for each of the contractors, what they needed to be paid, what we were paying for Oracle licenses and laptops. So all of that came under PMO. That's just stuff I never really thought about. Right? I'm up here getting my hands dirty with the SSP, the SAP, and the SAR, and the POEM. Not the POEM. I usually give the data for the POEM. So, but yeah, I definitely, like I said, she said I can interview her, so I'm definitely gonna come up. I just never thought about that until she did it. I was like, oh, I'm like, she went from PMO to CIO. But then when we broke it down, I'm like, yeah, our DFAS DOD project was as big as the whole agency at the state level. So I just never thought about it. So let's look at the FedRamp.gov's website real quick. Oh my God. Of course, it's down. Oh my God, I think it's shut down. Let's look at it. I never thought about that. Ooh, duh. Let's see if it'll let me share it. See it at the top? Anything up? Yeah, PBO didn't think this through. Shout out to PBO. Doing it live and in effect. Important notice, the FedRamp is operating mission essential function only due to the government shutdown. Please visit FedRamp.shutdown for more information. I don't think it's gonna let me look. Let's see. FedRamp, maybe let's see if it's up. Just not at the top. It's used to. So if you go to FedRamp.gov, we here. Let's see if we can. So we were talking about the readiness assessment, pre-authorization. So these are the stuff I just kind of pulled out and put on my slides. Let's see. They didn't change the slide part. Let's go to marketplace. So when you get your ATO, let's see if this will work. So if you get your ATO, you see over here, it shows you the providers and things that are already approved for government work. So it used to be just cloud service providers, but they don't open it up to different software. So it's 67 total. Let's see products. So let's see Splunk. I'm sure Splunk is out here. Splunk, yep. See Splunk. That's the number one SIM. Shout out to my man Ty. We were talking about top SIMs. So this is the top SIM used in a lot of government agency using. You see reuse right there, 144. And once again, it's different cloud sectors in there. So you got high. So if you were doing some nuclear session, you would use the FedRamp high. There's FedRamp moderate and Splunk for observability. So depending on what you needed for your particular agency, let's go FedRamp high. Let's go big dog in right there. So it's FedRamp high. You've seen it was authorized in 9/13/24. It shows you their process. It took them probably a year. It takes you a while to get there. FedRamp PMO review was 12/23. System profile, SaaS. It's in the government cloud. And just you can do it if you have high level work. Right? So a lot of times, if it's high, it could be usually it's life or death. Authorizing entities. These are some of the agencies that authorize it. Remember, we were talking about agency authorization, Bureau of Industry and Securities, Bureau of Labor and Statistics, Cyber Infrastructure, DISA, Defense Information System Agency. So those are some of the authorizing entities that said, we want this to come in and we want you to review it. And for our particular work, this is what we signed up for, right? So we were talking about those different agencies. So those are, of course, they opened it up in a new screen. So let me move over to the new screen so we can see what I was just talking about. Let's see, stop. Let's look at the different products. I think that's it. Yep. Sorry about that. I was walking through and y'all wasn't on the same thing I was looking at. So once again, here I'm just gonna put that in there, take us off. So once again, it's Splunk. We seen it was as authorized. We have 7 authorization and reuse. It was in process in 2023, and it was authorized, which the ATO, we were talking about all that good paperwork. It was authorized in 9/13/2024. Which is here. The profile, service model size. It's in the government community cloud. Impact, meaning we can do it for high level work, right? And that's what we talked about. Life or death. We're doing big things. Right underneath there, we're talking about, remember we were talking about agency authorizations. Here's some of the agencies that authorize it to do work. Bureau of Industry and Security, Bureau of Labor Statistics, CISA, Cybersecurity Information Agency, DISA, Defense Information Security Agency, Department of State, First Responders Network Authority, and HSS, which is HIPAA and HITRUST. Right, so they already gave it authority. They already did the paperwork. So now we can come out to a government cloud vendor. They didn't say which cloud vendor. Probably AWS and all the big three they have government data centers. Once again, the authorizing entities right there. We talked about that earlier. So here's the service description. Shout out to my man Ty. Splunk provides operational intelligence capabilities for organizations around the world. It's easy to provide a fast way to analyze massive streams of machine-generated data coming from IT systems and applications wherever they're deployed on premises, in virtual environments, or in the cloud. Splunk delivers enterprise software in the cloud environment where the setup and management of the support infrastructure is performed Splunk cloud operations. Once again, business categories over here. Service added in the last 90 days. Other services are provided by Splunk. And once again, if you needed that type of service, once again, Splunk could do that type of work. So that's once again how those services get pre-approved. Then you as a federal agency says, okay, Splunk has already been approved. We want to use it for that particular work. And that's kind of where FedRamp comes in. You don't have to go out there and do a new risk assessment, certain fundamentals, certain information is already done. Right now, if you have something super specific because it's high, you can ask Splunk, but you know the majority of the time, once again, it's already been approved. And the cool thing is in the federal space, you can scroll up and reach out to these particular agencies and really kind of say, what are y'all using it for? This is what we want to use it for. So that's why a lot of times, once again, you don't have to do that initial assessment because it's already been done. They already have their ATO for that type of work. So let me drop the invite up. If anybody wants to come up. I want to appreciate everybody for joining PBO. Let's see. Let's go back real quick and look at a couple other things inside that. Once again, these are products we look specifically up for Splunk. Let's look up AWS. That's definitely, everybody knows that's my favorite. So East and West can do moderate work. AWS Gov can do high FedRamp work. And a lot of times these services are 9 times out of 10, they come up because they're using the AWS data center. So once again, the data center is approved, then they get their software approved, right? Especially if it's SaaS. So then that's less stuff you have to review. I hate when it comes up in a different window, but that's it. Once again, so a lot of times when I review software, I will say, is it in a FedRamp approved data center? Is that software using FedRamp approved services, right? So you got Cisco, and to all the big vendors, they're going to get approved because they want that government money, right? They want that Fed type money. Let's look up one last thing. Once again, if anybody wants to come up or drop your questions inside the chat, we can make that happen. Let's see. Yeah, let's look at this. I'll show this. I always show this probably every other month. So that's what I talked about. That was from 2022. Pentagon splits $9 billion cloud contract among 4 companies. $9 billion with a big B. Let's see. And if you see at the top, Google, Oracle, Microsoft, and Amazon was sharing a $9 billion contract to build cloud computing networks a year after the accusation of polarization. But once again, if you're a government agency, we looked at that. You can pick one of these vendors to build your product on. And $9 billion, that's a big boy number. I always just like $9 billion. So those companies, I should have bought stock in them. I wasn't paying attention, but I won $9 billion. So I always tell people, pick a cloud, somebody's cloud. Hopefully it's one of these 4 clouds. In there, I would include Salesforce that sits on top of AWS. Rackspace, which I think sits on top of Microsoft. So I would just pick a cloud, learn it. Those type of skills will just definitely add to your current skill set. Once again, I'll hang out a little longer. Let me know if you have any additional questions. Somebody just asked me some FedRamp questions inside Chris's Discord. I'm calling it Chris. That's really Study GRC Discord. And two, as you mature as a company, service, or agency, NIST 800-53, CMC, HIPAA, HITRUST will be the next level of security you would need, because once again, you're trying to get federal contracts and federal money. And to do that type of work, you have to meet their security requirements. All right, those security requirements let you get healthcare data. Why do you want to have healthcare data? Because that's how you get paid. All right, so you're dealing with IRS data and you're a contractor, that's how you get paid, right? So people want government money, so you have government requirements, right? I always joke and say that's big boy requirements. So we want to welcome you to the big boy team. That's how we do it over here, right? Big things, big money, big things, big headaches, right? More requirements, more headaches. No, just playing. Something I've been doing forever. So just trying to share my knowledge with the group. Once again, drop any questions in there. The link's there if anybody wants to come up. It seemed like it was kicking out B2B last time, so Restream keeps updating their software. So I got to figure out what's going on with Restream. So let me get my chunky face back on the screen. Where? Let's see, but no, 9 billion. So everybody know I'm an AWS guy, so that's kind of who I usually kind of roll with when I do that. So yeah, I'm gonna leave the path for the final project. And once again, I've worked in doing this internally. I've never did the whole package, right? I help with the SSP, I help with the SAP, I help with the SAR. My thing is I usually do the remediation and doing the scanning, right? And then the Kanban piece, right? Because if you have an Oracle database or a SQL Server database, you have to scan it for compliance, and those scannings are going to have findings that's used to create a POAM. So if Chris left, Larry, I'll get that to you. Let me see, can I get that? Usually by the time I fumble with it, he usually has it out and about. Let me see if I can get that. Once again, I want to appreciate everybody for joining me. Let me see if I can get this link to Larry. Oh man, what time is it? It's just 8 o'clock. I hate when I have to move my clock. It makes me tired. One way or the other, it gets me tired. So it is what it is. I think I'm old and grumpy. I'm a curmudgeon. Let me see if I can get that Discord link. Once again, drop any questions in the chat. Let's see. Where is that at? Once again, putting questions in there. I'm trying to get this link. I'll be Discord challenge. Can I do that? My people. Copy link. Let's see if this is it. I think I got it. I think that's it, Larry. Test that real quick. Once again, if you got any questions, put them in the chat. We can make that happen. Once again, we just started talking about. I'm always tired. Once again, I dropped the link here. If anybody wants to come up, I dropped Chris' Discord link there. I'm always in there causing problems. Half the time I don't see it. Chris be sending me a link like, go look at this. All right, I'll go look at it. PBO be slow. Shout out to me. Shout out to me. Shout out to me. Once again, I want to thank everybody for joining me. Shout out to Chris. I think he jetted. I had to do a little. He be up at 4 a.m. though. He be up earlier. Shout out to my man Jeffrey. Shout out to my man Ty, Regine, Angelique. Thanks for joining me. Shout out for my man Kev Tech. He stopped through. One of the bigger YouTubers out there. He's showing me a little love. I appreciate it. I need to go check him out more. Appreciate Larry. Jim R. Lavoine. Excuse me if I'm messing your name up. Ty. The Equalizer. Jason. Security expert, definitely popping in. I always see him out and about on his YouTube street. NC worker, definitely one of the day ones. Yeah, I'm always tired. I'm still tired. Yeah, I got to get some energy going. Once again, I'll hang out a little longer if you have any questions. Just trying to keep it down to my smooth hour. Trying to get my monetization back. I appreciate you, Angelique. Thanks for joining me. Reaching out to my man Larry, PM Fed, PM doing this big work there. Hopefully things work out for Larry. It's hard out here, these streets. I appreciate you. What's up? Just doing my Tuesday. I would say late night. We used to do it at 9 o'clock. We bumped it up a couple hours. So doing an evening with PBO, just wrapping up the FedRamp package. You can definitely check it all out on the stream. Once again, if you have any questions, we're going to shut it on down. I appreciate everybody for joining me. If not, check out the replay. Let's see. Let me see. No, that was for Study GRC. Did that work for you, Larry? No, that was for Study GRC. That was one of their discussion. That's for the GRC discussion. Yep, do that. He'll do that for you. Yeah. If that doesn't work for you, he'll definitely just ping it. I need to tell him to show me how. I thought I did it right. PBL be struggling. There's just so many discords and for the different applications. So once again, people were asking me, a few people asked me some FedRamp questions. So I just want to kind of tighten it up with the FedRamp final package and just kind of talk about what that will look like and what us as security people, GRC people, shout out to PMP, what PMP people have when they were doing a FedRamp authorization, ATO. To be able to, once again, get your paperwork to do a system. And as you can see, that could take a year sometimes, depending on what you got going on and the level of security your organization in. If you're new to the game, it could take a while. And a lot of times, too, if you're doing custom work, you might not even be done with the majority of your software. So you need to get that done before they can come in and do authorization of it. So, okay. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm a NIST guy. A lot of people do NIST CSF 800. CMC is actually NIST 171, 172. Yeah, there's a lot of NIST. And NIST, a lot of states use NIST because those states are asking for federal data and they got to meet those federal requirements. Once again, I did a lot of work for Department of Revenue for state taxes, and we needed to get data from the IRS. So, but really, I started doing this when I was doing work at DOD. So I did that for 10 years, and I worked for the State Department of Revenue doing this for 9 years. So I got about 20 years off and on of doing different NIST packages and stuff. So, but that's it. I want to appreciate everybody for joining me. You know, reach out to me. I'm a little late checking my email. It's kind of been a rough quarter for me, so I'm just trying to get it together. Once again, I want to appreciate everybody for joining me. And you can reach out to me on Discord or check my email forever. ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. Most people ping Chris and Chris ping me. I'll be late. But once again, I appreciate everybody for joining me. Thanks for supporting me. Come and check me out Friday, lunch and learn, 12 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to talk about information interchange between agencies or big divisions, which is how do we change data? Who's responsible for what? Are we changing XML, flat files? This is the layout. And from a security perspective, how are we securing it? The other perspective is if you go down, am I down? Am I putting in a queue from a DR perspective? Right. A lot of times we're working with 2 or 3 other companies or divisions. So how do we do patching of a database? If you're down, if the front end's down, is the back end down, right? So what does that file look like? We used to call it memorandum or MOU, right? Memorandum of understanding. I think they changed it to interchange documentation. So we're going to look at that. And I put that under risk assessment. So what does that look like from a risk assessment? Do we have that documentation between external customers or when you work for the government, between agencies, because we don't trust each other? I'm out. Everybody have a happy hump day tomorrow. If you need me, I'm out on these cybersecurity streets. Everybody have a nice night. And once again, I got to get used to these time changes. Once again, appreciate everybody for joining me. I appreciate you.